vlog, we have a magic trick.
I like the vlog. Watch vlog. We do the magic trick.
The goldfish.
I have one green and one red.
One green one.
Shake it up. Close my eyes. One. This is the one I'm eating.
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to go with that group right there.
That's red.
Yeah.
Hold on. Isn't it crazy? Right, vlog? Which is your favorite goldfish flavor?
Don't worry, I'll eat some of the yellow to even it out.
You're looking. What? No, I said I like green.
You don't know?
Red is good. But I'll settle for yellow or orange or green. Like, I don't hate any of the taste.
But right? It tastes weird. It's so weird that's good. Maybe it's the dye.
And that's why I'm not eating no more red. That offered you.
I won't eat red either.
What a good chosen
Because I
name.
know that shit is his favorite one. His favorite is the orange, probably.
The yellow.
Because orange is just an odd color. Yellow looks real.
You're eating a real goldfish.
In my mind, I'm a cat.
I have bracelets today. Someone made me this, and I made this. My coworker said I smell like her room spray. That was confusing.
For what?
Her room spray, just like spray that she uses in her room. And I said, oh. I said, so funny. I was like, how was I supposed to react to that?
Alright, we have one last thing we need to look over, or go over. So we're going to do that today. Obviously, you won't be here tomorrow. We'll do a little more practice on Wednesday. Thursday, I'm not sure what's going on with the, I think there's a Veterans Day program or something.
that was Wednesday. No,
They moved
it's
to Thursday.
I thought it was Thursday.
It's not just told us to be there.
So I don't know what time it's going to be or when.
Mine is in early.
Alright, so we probably won't have class. So, if we do, we'll have practice. You'll have a quiz on the names, where I give you the name, you gotta write the formula, and you gotta write the name on Friday. Then we'll review next Monday. And then we will review next Monday, and you'll have the test on ionic compounds Tuesday and Wednesday of the following week, or next week. All right? So Tuesday, you'll have the multiple choice part. Wednesday, you'll have the written part. So there'll be a part on paper.
That's next week.
That's next week. So quiz Friday, test Tuesday, Wednesday, and next week. All right, so the last thing we have to look at is if I give you the formula and you need to be able to write the name. All right? The rules are not that hard, but when you do it in practice, there's some things you got to make sure you pay attention for that can kind of trip you up. Right? So sulfur would turn into sulfide.
Sulfide.
So potassium sulfide. Not really that bad.
Wait, you said if you find it on the
So if you look, if your second element's on the periodic table, you drop the ending and put ID.
That's what anion.
and if it's not it's on the paper you gave us, it's
We're going to look at those in a few minutes. Right? What now?
So that's only my anion.
That's only for the anion, the second element. The first element, you put whatever its name is.
okay.
So if I have CaCl2, so Ca is calcium. Cl is on the periodic table, so it's going to become chloride.
So they all gonna be odd?
For now, there are some others that won't, but we'll look at those in a
Well,
minute.
that's easy then.
Okay.
You were better.
It's not hard, But there are details that you're going to have to watch out for that we hadn't quite gotten to yet that do make it a little tricky. So if I have Na and Br,
Sodium bromide.
so Na is sodium,
Okay,
Br is,
Bromide.
will become bromide. All right? So now let's go back and look at number 1 and 2. These have a little trick to them. So if I have FeBr3,
Iron.
Fe is iron. All right, now, where is iron on the periodic table?
In the transition.
It's a transition metal.
You put these on
So remember, if you have a transition metal, Sn or Pb, you've got to put a Roman numeral with their name. So now,
What's that?
how do I figure out the Roman numeral?
Whatever numbers you have.
All right? So, where did these subscripts come from?
Each other, they.
We found them and then we crossed them, right?
Yes.
So to get the Roman numeral,
You have to look at
you
zero.
uncross it. All right, so what's iron's subscript? No, right here. What's the subscript after? 1. So that meant this number came from up here, right? So it's -1. Bromine subscript is 3. So that comes from up here and it's +3. So it looks like it would be iron Roman numeral 3, right?
Yeah.
We have to check for something. What happens if I had a 2 and a 2, like a +2 and a -2? They cancel out. Well, the same thing would happen if I had a 2 and a 4, except they would become a 1 and a 2, right? They simplify. So I have to make sure nothing is simplified. So the way you do that is you're going to look at your anion, Br. And we said Br's, when we uncrossed them, we said Br's charge was -1, correct? So if I look on the periodic table, is Br's charge -1? Yes.
Yeah.
So if the number I wrote up here when I uncross them matches what it's supposed to be, that means nothing's simplified. So I can go with the 3. So it's going to be iron, Roman numeral 3, and then Br is
Bromide.
bromide. All right, that makes sense? All right, how about Cu(I2)? So Cu is copper. Copper 2. Okay, I gotta put a Roman numeral for copper because it's a transition metal. So we uncross them to figure them out. So that means this 2 came from here. This 1 came from right here. And then just to make sure nothing's simplified, I'm going to look up iodine. Is iodine's charge -1?
Yeah.
So what I wrote matched what it should be. So we're good. So it's going to be copper, Roman numeral 2, iodine. All right. So, any questions with these?
No, sir.
Not overly difficult. It's the Roman numerals that tend to trip people up. All right, let's look at the next section. So let's say we don't have a let's say we have a polyatomic ion, and we want to write the name. So if I have KOH, same rules apply. The name of the cation followed by the name of the anion. So what is K?
Potassium.
Potassium. This time now I'm left with OH, right? So my anion's 2 capital letters. So that means I have a polyatomic ion, correct? So you look to get the name, you look for it on the sheet. So what is OH's name? Hydroxide. So it's potassium hydroxide.
It was terrifying.
For these? Yeah. You don't, why don't I put one here though? Because it's in a transition metal. No. So if it's not a transition metal, tin or lead, you don't write a Roman numeral. Alright, how about Na2CO3?
That's gonna be
So Na is sodium. That leaves me with CO3, right? So since that's two capital letters, where am I going to find it? The paper. And CO3 is called what?
Carbon trial.
Carbon. What? Carbonate.
Carbon what?
So why is that a 2 extra? Or the same thing that is
Let's look at number 8. This is like the hardest one. And it doesn't, it looks very underassuming too. So Fe is what? Iron. It's a transition metal, right? So that means I need a Roman numeral. So now, that means I have to uncross it, right? So do I bring the 4 up here? No, because 4 is part of sulfate, right? So remember, when we went to write the formulas, whatever if you had to write a subscript from up, or a subscript that came from up here, what did we have to do to the polyatomic ion? Put it in parentheses, right? So, all right, is it in parentheses?
No.
So that means I didn't write a number from back here, which meant this had to be what? 1. So this was +1. This was, looks like it would be -1 if we uncross it, right? So it's iron Roman numeral 1. Let's look at something. What? Why does it simplify? How do you know? Alright. So, what is SO4's charge?
Where did you get the plus one?
Okay. Okay, because it's not in it's not in parentheses, right? So if it's not in parentheses, that meant the number that came from up here had to have been 1. Because if I had to write a number from up here, like a 2, a 3, a 4, SO4 would have had to be in parentheses, correct? Alright. So since there was no parentheses, that meant this would have had to have been 1. Right. Okay, so iron was, does it have a subscript? Nope, so when I brought it back, that meant this would have been -1. You just worked it backwards. Polyatomic sulfate is SO4. So the 4 belongs to the sulfate. I can't change that 4. But if I go back and look at SO4 on the polyatomic ion list, what's its charge supposed to be?
4.
Should be negative what?
What was the question?
Negative 2. So, did this 1 that I wrote from when I reversed the subscripts match what it should have been?
No.
No. So that meant it was simplified. So if this is supposed to be -2, what did iron have to be for the 2 to cancel to a 1? It had to have been what? +2. So this is going to be iron Roman numeral 2. That makes sense? That's the trickiest this gets, is if it's something that's simplified.
Yeah, can you do another one?
We will.
Like 4 more.
Right? So it's going to be iron Roman numeral 2, and then what's the name of SO4? Sulfate.
So wait, what's the number?
Because I'm still not
Come on, it's a big one.
Alright, let's look at number 9. Cu3PO42. So Cu is copper. Copper is a transition metal, so that means I need the parentheses in a Roman numeral, right? So I got to work backwards. This time, if you notice PO4, it's in parentheses, right?
Yes.
So since it's in parentheses, that means the number outside of the parentheses had to come from copper, correct?
Right.
So everybody sees the difference then between this and this. Why this is 2 and this is 1.
Yes.
All right. So now I have a 3 from here, so that meant this 3 had to come from phosphate. So now to make sure I didn't have anything happen like I did for number 8, let's look up PO4 and see what their inch charge is supposed to be. -3. So did that match? Yes. So do I have to worry about trying to figure out like I did for this one?
No.
Nope. I can just go with the 2. So it's iron, Roman numeral 2, and then what do we call phosphate?
You just told me. You just told me.
So it's copper, Roman numeral 2, phosphate. That makes sense? Right. And then let's look at 10. Although it's an easier trick than the trick to 8.
8 wasn't a
That's what makes it difficult. The actual process is not hard. It's just remembering those little things that makes it a little bit more difficult. So I have ZnNO32. What is Zn? Zinc, right? Zinc is a transition metal. But remember there were 3 exceptions, right? Zn, Cd, and Ag. So remember Zn, Cd, and Ag. Those 3, could they form more than one ion?
Yes.
No. Remember those 3 don't form more than one ion. So they don't have Roman numerals, right? Those were the ones you had to memorize. Zn and Cd are both +2. Ag is +1. So because of that, we don't put the Roman numeral, even though it's a transition metal. So it's going to be zinc, and then what do we call NO3? Nitrate. All right. So any questions with that? That makes sense? So Zn, Cd, and Ag, you're never going to put a Roman numeral behind. While we're talking about exceptions, there are 2 non-transition metals that act like transition metals. Zn, Cd, and Ag. No Roman numerals. What?
Everything in the top group?
No, just Zn, Cd, and Ag. Ag. So Zn and Cd, remember, always +2. Ag is always +1. And then, even though Sn and Pb aren't transition metals, they act like it and have to have a Roman numeral. Alright, so any questions with any of this? Alright. Let's say I gave you
Your birthday's in
What's today? It's the 7th. November? Yeah.
let's say I gave you CUS. It's not a polyatomic ion, but it applies just the same. So, Cu is copper, So I need a Roman numeral, right? So if I go to where I work backwards, there's nothing written here, so that means this had to have been -1. There's nothing written here, so this had to have been +1. Right? All right? So now, to check to make sure nothing's simplified, I look at sulfur. Its charge should be what? -2. Is that what I wrote? No, I wrote -1. So that means it was simplified. Well, if copper is +2, copper we said was +1, sulfur was -2. What does copper have to be here so that most subscripts have to be 1? It had to be +2, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Because that's what it had to be for them to both simplify to 1s. So it's going to be copper, Roman numeral 2, small 5. Since it's S, it's on the periodic table, you put ID.
Got it.
All right? That makes sense?
Yeah, one more.
Okay, that's the trickiest part.
And then we do
How about PbO2?
I thought you said people was an exception.
It is. It has to have a rotation.
Oh,
Okay, so put
Lead.
Don't say it out loud.
go away. Come to mama. The bug? Yeah. Just chilling. You dad's scared you have to put it inside. What time is this? What time is it?
This one's slightly different from
I see that.
the other one. It's still kind of the same process.
It's prerogative. Something like that. It's not a piece.
That's right.
yeah, with that, 2 oxide.
Oh, I thought it was a piece.
Yeah, it is.
You're outside.
Oh. No, I'm talking about not the outside.
I never
part.
thought of that.
Oh no, I
Where'd you
can't
have
get
that?
that.
All right, so let's look at this one.
Sorry.
So we know Pb is lead.
Four.
So I need a Roman numeral since lead is an exception, right?
Right.
So I cross them.
Right.
So this 2 comes from up here, and it looks like it's +2, right?
Yes.
Pb doesn't have one, so it's -1.
But when you go to oxygen,
But when you look at oxygen, it should be what?
-2.
-2.
so right.
So it
So,
should be.
but were they both 1s?
No, it's a
No.
simplified version.
So it it's still simplified, but they're not the same number.
So it is.
So, if for this to turn into a 2 and this to turn into a 1,
It had to be 2 and 2.
so if I have 1 over 2,
That's 2 over 4.
it would have, and this needs to be 2, it had to be 2 over 4, right? So that means lead was +4.
I got it right.
So it's iron, Roman numeral 4,
My dad.
oxide. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And this one is actually probably, unless I had done it with a polyatomic ion, the hardest that gets.
So,
You have a hole
so
puncher.
what yes.
Do you have a hole puncher?
It could, probably not. That one would be kind of rare, but 2 and 4 does pop up some, which is why I wanted to show you that one. All right, so here's what I want y'all to do now. If you look in classroom, there's a document that says ionic compounds. For those of you here that were here Friday, this is what I told you to start working on. So the first page, I give you the names, and you've got to write the formulas. All right? The second page gives you the answer for you to check. The third and fourth page gives you the formulas. The third page, sorry. Gives you the formulas, and you have to write the names. The fourth one, again, names, you got to write the formulas, and then if you go to the end, it gives you the answers for you to check, okay? All right, so I want you to work on this. It's going to look like I'm giving you a lot of practice. This is something that you need to be able to do, and then you also need to be able to do it with a little bit of speed. All right, because later on, when we get to doing mole conversions and other stuff, you're going to have to be able to write the formulas. And you don't want to be struggling with writing the formula and then it throw everything else that you have to do with the calculation stuff off because you didn't get the formula written. All right, so I'm going to give you time today to work on this. I'll probably give you some more practice on Wednesday to work on. On Friday, you'll have the quiz on this, which the quiz will be all multiple choice. The usual 10 questions, multiple choice. We'll talk a little bit more about the quiz on Wednesday. And then the test will be Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. The Tuesday part will be multiple choice. It will include the stuff from the first quiz, ions and all that, and this. The second part of the test, which is going to be the part that's on paper, will look a lot like this part. It's going to give you a list of names. You're going to have to write their formulas, and it's going to give you a list of formulas. You're going to have to write their names. All right? So any questions? And you can go ahead and get to work on that. If you have any questions, let me know. If you don't understand why you got something wrong or something like that, let me know. But this is something you need to do.
They're calling a bar.
I'm trying to push him out. I'm not trying to stop him. Stop. There you go.
If you want another piece of candy,
I'm so sorry.
Push him his way out. They're gonna kill him.
Diamond one. Whatever candy you get.
Stop. If he goes over there, they're gonna kill him. He will never survive. Please. Push him towards me.
My table code. Who is it for?
Baby, go to the left. To the left.
work together, you can.
Thank you.
It's a call if he's good. On the if he's lucky, they'll just run away from him. Not everyone is like random. Really? I like when you laugh like small air. And there's a bubble air. Okay. You take it back. Like small air. And I hope up your toe.
Moment to the right.
Oh, you have You said that, but you took all of it.
Zoom in on Erin's face at that point.
That's it. Y'all literally made me know exactly zero choice, but to bring out my laser eyes.
Yes. Erin,
No, he's gone.
Erin, I'm gonna have to exit and stop.
Maybe he's under the biscuit. So we check on that side of it, see if he went around. Because he's not right there. Look how goofing about.
Erin's laser eyes. I turned them off. You asked that as if we are gonna do it. I mean, we are gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it later.
Yeah. I think that's the one I got. But I just designed it and I put my name in it.
Look at
I tried drinking water, but like, it got all crushed. Stop. I need a second.
they're off. I turned them off.
Put lasers on it.
What did you say? Don't do that.
Trying to get away. Trying to.
No. Give it.
No.
He's like,
I didn't put it yesterday.
yesterday? You did it yesterday?
I can't be out some more.
I can't look at y'all right now.
What?
Drink water.
Oh, my bad. I was just that goofy looking. Damn. I see how it's going.
Well, I did my way in my school.
Where is he?
Yeah, I know that's why I didn't choose that one. My mom was like, I'm gonna kill you.
Sit on that chair with that bag. Sit on your chair with the bag.
I'm coming back there.
And he's right here.
They almost hit me. Keep swinging back like that. No.
I wish we would have had the clip of the railing.
No. Go get it.
That would have been the which
Bye, Vlog. Do the vlog, bye. Do the outro. What did we learn today?
absolutely fucking nothing. I have nothing.
It's Erin, right?
To Sophia.
Tell the camera bye.
Wait, show us the vlog.